This is Antwerp, the busiest port in Europe. Last year, 110 tons of cocaine was seized here.
They hide it everywhere, inside of other goods, trunks of trees, t-shirts or clothes that are soaked up with liquid cocaine. Every year we break a new record.
It's a way station on the blood-stained trail that starts in the jungles of Colombia, Bolivia and Peru and ends on the streets of London, Paris and Berlin.
Every 5-6 weeks, minimum 20 ton. When you have a clean company, clean people, and you don't speak too much with your telephone, and you don't buy a Porsche, nobody finds you.
In its wake, it's a trail of destruction that has shocked Europe.
There is corruption, high levels of violence. We had beheadings, we had execution squads with Kalashnikovs killing opponents.
And forced Belgium's senior politicians into hiding.
The fight against organized crime in Belgium is what the fight against Islamist terrorism was 7 to 8 years ago.
And its demand from places like the UK that is throwing fuel on the fire.
They should know that their drug use isn't without consequence. There's blood on their hands of the youth and blood on the noses.
I'm in Belgium to discover why it has become the cocaine smuggling capital of Europe. Antwerp was once better known for its bustling diamond district, but now the city has a reputation for an even more lucrative trade: cocaine. So much of the so-called white gold was found here last year that incinerators were unable to burn the drug quick enough. Most is seized here at the port, a sprawling container city the size of 16,600 football fields. It's easy to see why it's a target for traffickers. And according to former drug smuggler Paul Meyer, the port's vulnerability is nothing new.
It's an open port. The mentality from the people is perfect for this kind of things. The system there is not working, the security is not working. Everybody who's driving there saying stop and check, it's impossible. Every truck driver stop, impossible, impossible. Yeah, when you see how big the port is, that's never possible.
Meyer, who served 7 years for trafficking, says he once moved industrial quantities of narcotics through the Belgian container port with relative ease.
Every 5-6 weeks we do minimum 20 ton, and they pay me €1 million for that. Every 5 weeks it was party time. In this kind of things you have everything. There's money, nice life, women, parties. It was a very nice time. First with the cigarette business from China, also the spirits to England, also the cigarettes to England. And one day somebody was coming to me and said, can you bring something over for me from Morocco? And he said hashish. And then he said 65. And I was thinking that he paid me €65,000 for this deal. So a few days later I pick up the container and I deliver the container. And then a few days later I must collect my money and he paid me €650,000. And I say, ooh, it's a little bit more. He is coming back to me, he said, listen Paul, what do you think? I pay you for every time, I pay you €1 million and you can start. So I fly over to Morocco and I start my business.
Meyer says he managed to traffic staggering quantities of drugs through Antwerp, including hash, heroin and cocaine.
The only thing what I didn't do was women and weapons, something what I never do. But for the rest, tell me what is inside, because that's depending the price, and I do the job. I was never involved in principle in the products. I always pick up the container and I organize that the container is coming in the place where they want, and they pay me money for that. When you have a clean company, clean people, and you don't speak too much with your telephone, and you don't buy a Porsche, nobody finds you.
Smugglers like Meyer are a link in a chain which connects the drug manufacturers with their markets, which are often halfway around the world. For cocaine, the chain begins in South America.
Cocaine is produced in Colombia and Peru and Bolivia. And then it goes to ports either on the northern side of Colombia, or it's smuggled to the Panama Canal to Canada, or it's going to Brazilian ports. And from there It can go two ways. It can go straight to Western Europe, to Rotterdam and Antwerp, or it goes to West Africa, Senegal and Mali, winds up in Morocco, and from Morocco to Spain. So you have different routes.
That's Dr. Teun Verden, journalist and narcotic gangs expert.
Most of the drugs that enter in Antwerp, it's estimated that 90% goes straight to Holland. And from Holland is distributed all over Europe.
There are lines directly to England, and that's something what I know, so the containers going directly to there. I think before, England was the biggest buyer here, I think, about when we talk about hashish, and cocaine the same, and cigarettes the same here. But now I hear also stories that the containers are going directly to England. It's much cheaper to do it in that way.
It's huge, and there is a lot of money to be made.
The cocaine market in the EU alone is worth billions, with criminal gangs raking in huge profits if they can move the cocaine from its source in South America to the streets of Europe.
In South America, you pay maximum $2,000 for 1 kilo.
The guys in Antwerp that buy a kilo of coke for 25,000. From 1 kilo of coke, they make 2 kilos. They dilute it with all kind of stuff. 2 kilo, they make like 3,000 gram packages. They sell each for like €50. That's 150,000 euro street value of a kilo of coke you have bought in Antwerp for 25,000.
With so much money at stake, smugglers go to extraordinary lengths to conceal their products, playing a cat-and-mouse game with customs officers tasked with discovering it.
They always find new methods where we have like classical ones, like you hide inside of other goods.
This was import of fertilizer, almost half a ton of cocaine.
T-shirts or clothes that are soaked up with liquid cocaine, and so they have a way to extract this cocaine when it arrives in Europe. They also hide inside of other goods, like we have found the trunks of trees that had been emptied, and inside it was cocaine.
This was import of teak from Ecuador. When they played a little with the brightness and the contrast of the image, they saw that the pile of wood that was the farthest in the container, so at the back of the container, had darker edges and a lighter interior. So when they examined it, it appeared to be wood filled with cocaine. This was an example of the real peel of pineapple they used, and they filled it up with cocaine paste. And yeah, well, it looked like a real pineapple, of course, because it was the real peel. Same thing as with the pineapples. They used the real peel of the cassava and put the cocaine paste inside.
They are using also the boats, the outside of the boats, inside of the water, and then they will attach cocaine. So we have divers inspecting the boats. They hide it everywhere.
Some 7 million containers pass through the port each year, but only 2% can be scanned without causing major delays. So officers must use intelligence gathering and intuition to choose which shipments warrant further inspection.
First of all, we use the scanner to see if there's anything hidden between the goods. Most of the time it gives a very good indication to the colleagues.
The scanned images are assessed by 2 customs officers independently. If they notice something that seems out of place, the container can be taken to be physically inspected.
This is the verification warehouse where all containers that need to be physically checked are unloaded, then the goods are checked, and then they are loaded again. Bananas coming from Colombia, yes. Very interesting.
Smugglers target goods which they hope will make it through customs checks faster.
They don't only target bananas, but fruits in general, because those are perishable goods. And they need to be moved quickly before they turn bad, so they hope that they get through the checks faster.
The Belgian government estimates just 11% of the cocaine that travels through Antwerp is seized.
Every year we break a new record, 22. It's 110 tons that we have seized here, and the year before we had 90 tons.
Now the container with the fruit, with the bananas, is unloaded to give my colleague the opportunity to check all the crates with the bananas inside. He uses a very large stick, which he sticks inside of the boxes to make sure nothing else is on it than the fruit juice.
There are peaks, and we see at least 2 peaks in the year. Fall was really crazy. It was almost every day 1 ton, up to 6 tons at once. Fall is a good period because you will have the season Christmas with a lot of parties, so a lot of demand. Also we see a raise also before summer, because then you have all the parties, the festivals.
I think he's finished now and don't think he found anything suspicious, so that's a good sign.
Despite customs' best efforts, the seizures do not seem to be putting much of a dent in street supply.
Well, I would like to say that we only seize more because we have better equipment and better tools. But unfortunately, it's also the truth that more cocaine is produced and more is imported into the port of Antwerp. So that's one of the reasons we seize more. Because if we would seize more in like a percentage of the whole part, then we would notice that prices on the market increase because of the goods getting scarce. And that's not the case. Prices stay more or less the same during the last couple of years.
Cocaine is cheaper and more readily available than it's ever been before in Europe. With so much of it flowing through the port, Antwerp is experiencing outbreaks of bloodshed and mayhem as warring narco gangs fight to control the market. Over the past 5 years, there have been 200 incidents of drug-related violence, including threats, beatings, and planted explosive devices. This month, an 11-year-old girl died in Antwerp after being caught in the crossfire of a suspected drugs feud. While 25 miles across the Dutch border from central Antwerp, police uncovered a soundproof torture chamber built by narcos.
They found a container, and one was completely designed as a torture chamber with a dentist chair and with all kind of pliers and nasty tools. And the suspects was a Dutch drug syndicate and well known for involvement in cocaine import and export.
It's not new. I was not shocked. The world was shocked because they find it. In my time, not the containers, but they rent a house and they use it especially for this kind of things. Or they put you in the trunk from the car and they drive to the forest. I mean,
and torture you?
Yes.
And not even Belgium's top politicians are safe. Last year, the country's deputy prime minister was forced into hiding after a suspected plot to kidnap him and his family was uncovered by police.
I had a call from the federal prosecutor, a personal call. He said to me, I have bad news for you. There is a plan to kidnap you and your family, or your family, in the next few days. They had found a car at 100 meters of our house in which were found gasoline, guns, and also things to cuff your hands. We've arrived in what I would call a new phase. It's called a phase of narco-terrorism. Before that, drug lords fought each other in the underworld. Today, they are turning against the upper world, against the journalists, against the judges, against the prosecutors, and now also against the decision makers. And I'm maybe the first minister to go through all this, but I will probably not be the last. The fight against organized crime in Belgium is what the fight against Islamist terrorism was 7 to 8 years ago. I mean, only this one will be even tougher because this form of crime is so widespread. It doesn't only affect the Netherlands and Belgium, it will increasingly spread throughout Europe and its cities.
So what can be done to stem the flow of cocaine?
You have to attack it at all dimensions. You have to attack on the consumer side, go after the small dealers, and they might be small fish, but these small fish will become the big fish. You should go after the whole financial sector. There are a lot of notaries, accountants that help launder drug money. that infiltrates in the real estate sector, so you should control that more. You should also have more control in the port of Antwerp.
We were able to seize 110 tons of cocaine last year. That's about 11% of the total flux of cocaine coming in through Antwerp. Experts say that if we raise that to 20%, we will be able to breach the business model of those people. So this is the most important thing. 90% of those cocaine that is imported through Antwerp is not destined for a local market. It goes to other markets, to Holland, and it goes to the UK. So in fact, the British drug users, they should know that their drug use isn't without consequence. There's blood on their hands of the users and blood on the noses.